Recently, there has been a talk about Xbox restructuring, and this particular news is definitely going to be interesting for Elder Scrolls 6 fans, because Elder Scrolls 6 is apparently at least 2 years away. And I think the report is believable, but the bigger story isn't that the Elder Scrolls 6 is still years away. It's what that says about the current state of AAA game development, and essentially Microsoft's strategy. But this is how I see it. A 2028 release wouldn't surprise me, and if our boy Jason Schreier says it's at least 2 or more years away, I would take that seriously. The man has built one of the strongest track records in the gaming industry for accurately reporting development timelines. Love him or hate him, he has been really reliable in the past. So a late 2028 release would mean roughly a decade of active development after the game's announcement in 2018. But it's worth remembering that Bethesda wasn't actually making The Elder Scrolls 6 immediately after that reveal. The studio still had to finish Starfield, and only shifted its full attention afterwards. So while the announcement trailer is 8 years old, full production hasn't been running for all of those 8 years. And that's a really important point to make, because I would be very fucking worried if I knew that The Elder Scrolls 6 has been in active development for 10 years. And if that was the case, I would definitely expect something groundbreaking when the game finally comes out. However, one point I need to raise, and it's very important. And that's basically that the 2018 announcement is a very bad example of why publishers announce games too early. You could say that Bethesda revealed The Elder Scrolls 6 largely to reassure fans after announcing Fallout 76, and additionally, Todd Howard even said they wanted people to know it existed. And now you might ask yourself, why was that a bad idea? Well, the problem is that 8 years later, we've seen one cinematic teaser, virtually no gameplay, no release window, and almost no concrete details. And let me tell you, that creates expectations no developer can realistically satisfy over such a long period. And rightfully so. I mean, people will expect all kinds of stuff. Hell, even I expect it. And I'm fully aware that the game wasn't in development for 8 years. But some of the people will think that. And that's the biggest issue here. Also, when you think about it with all this Xbox stuff, I think Xbox needs this game more than Bethesda does. If you read through the article, you can see the following. Microsoft has closed studios, cancelled projects, laid off thousands of employees, and struggled to consistently produce blockbuster exclusives. And if the reports about doubling down on flagship franchises are accurate, then The Elder Scrolls 6 becomes more than just another RPG for Microsoft. It becomes one of the pillars of Xbox's future. And that's creating enormous pressure. Not only does the game need to review well, but also it probably needs to sell tens of millions of copies, drive Game Pass subscriptions, restore confidence in Xbox's first-party lineup, and justify Microsoft's enormous investment in Bethesda. And I don't know if Bethesda can deliver, but that's a lot to ask of one game. And speaking about Bethesda delivering, this is actually the part that worries me the most. We all know Skyrim is one of the most influential RPGs ever made, but since then, Bethesda's track record has been mixed, and that's me being generous, by the way. First, you have Fallout 4. It divided RPG fans because of its simplified dialogue and role-playing systems. Then you have Fallout 76, which launched in a disastrous state before improving significantly over time. And finally, Starfield. Yes, it reviewed well, but then again, we are talking about mainstream reviewers here. But more importantly, it generated a surprisingly polarized response. Some players loved it, while many, me included, criticized its exploration, procedural content, and outdated design philosophy. Oh yeah, and let's not forget the fiasco with paid DLCs and mods. So when you think about it, The Elder Scrolls 6 isn't launching after another Skyrim. It's pretty much launching after years of people questioning whether Bethesda's formula has evolved enough. And that brings me to another point, which is that the expectations for this game are almost impossible to meet. Well, impossible is a bit too harsh of a word. I would say it is achievable, but only if you know what you're doing. You see, when Skyrim launched in 2011, open-world RPGs looked very differently, and there was little direct competition. Not to mention, players' expectations were lower. However, today, Bethesda is competing in a world shaped by games like The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate 3, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and many others that have redefined the open RPG genre significantly. So normally, players now expect several things. First and foremost, you have reactive worlds, then meaningful choices, then sophisticated NPC behavior, then you have modern combat, excellent storytelling, and finally, technical polish. So if you wanna be just another Bethesda RPG, well, that may no longer be enough. Thing is, if you're listening to my babbling, you might say that I'm very pessimistic about the whole situation. And I would say rightfully so, especially when I saw what Bethesda has been delivering for the past 10 years. You might argue that they know exactly how important this game is, and since they are not rushing it after what happened with Fallout 76, there might be a chance that it might actually work. Also, if Xbox is truly betting heavily on its major franchise, Microsoft has every incentive to give Bethesda the time and resources needed to get the Elder Scrolls 6 right. So a delayed Elder Scrolls is far less damaging than another disappointing launch. Ultimately, I would say that my biggest concern about this whole situation isn't the release date. It's whether Bethesda has fundamentally evolved its game design. If the Elder Scrolls 6 feels like Skyrim with prettier graphics, I don't think the reaction is going to be positive at all. However, if it modernizes exploration, RPG systems, NPC simulation, and all that stuff that I mentioned previously, while giving us the player freedom that we experienced in Skyrim, there is still a spark of hope that the game has potential to be pretty damn good. So to conclude, after waiting well over a decade since Skyrim, I don't think people are simply looking for more Elder Scrolls. They are expecting Bethesda to show that it can still set the standard for open-world RPGs rather than follow it. Can they do it? Well, only time will tell. And that's basically my take on this news. Thanks very much for watching, and as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And that's it from me, until the next one.